of Weeks, or as it is more commonly known as Pentecost. These are the holy days that Yahweh has said that these things are important unto Him. Of course, we know that the rest of the world is keeping this as Pentecost, which is, of course, the Greek term penta, meaning 50. So the majority of those people have no idea that they are taking part in a Old Testament holy day, that those things are still things that we're supposed to be doing. Why it is an issue within the whole Sunday church setup is they completely say that everything in the Old Testament is done away. So by giving that a different name, all of these people are about to partake in these things and have no idea that not only is the roots of it in the Old Testament, but the entire makeup of what it is and what we're supposed to be doing is all outlined in the Old Testament. My teacher used to always say that the Old Testament is a confirmation of the things that are in the New, and vice versa. The New just confirms the thing that were already set forth in the Old Testament. It is a complete story, and one cannot be dealt with without the other. Because if you deal with just the Old Testament by itself, then you still need to be doing animal sacrifice. If you deal with just the New Covenant by itself, then you're still going to have a serious lack of understanding of what all of these things are really for. And it all leads back to the redemption of the children of Israel. Our redemption is being placed back in our land to live in peace under our own governmental system. That is what our salvation is. Our salvation is not dying and going to heaven. That was somebody else's story. That was somebody else's God. And those things were sold unto us, and we now believe in those things wholeheartedly. But these things, the things that we are gathered to do here tonight, these are the things that Yahweh has set forth as being important unto Him. And how can we say that we love Yahweh Elohim, but we have absolutely no interest in the things that are important unto Him? And these things have its setup, its foundation. When we deal with the 7 days of creation, we then roll over into these 7 holy days. All of these things go hand in hand. And because the shepherds of the earth have decided that they're going to go after filthy lucre, they're going to go after what they can stuff in their pocketbooks. So these things are only important because of something that they can get out of it. So this is the only feast day, Yahweh's feast day, that you're going to find that is openly dealt with within Sunday church goers. But it's just one out of the 3 of His holy days that He commanded us, all males, to make an appearance. So there is definitely some things that are lacking, but this is our practice part, because Yahweh is going to expect us to have some form of understanding by the time we get to walk in our own land. When you get right down to it, out of all of the times that the children of Israel were there in Egypt, Yahweh didn't say anything about a law. He didn't say anything about an order. He said something to them right when they were about to get that land. He said, all right, when you get into the land that I'm going to give you, do this, do this, do this. There was no need to have any instruction if you're going to be a captive. And the people who want you to stay captives are the ones that keep saying, don't deal with any law. Because captives don't have to deal with law. Think about it. If you're a captive, if you're in jail, you don't need law. You need to just listen to the man and tell you what to do. Only free people need to understand law. Captives don't need to understand law. And Yahweh didn't give us law as captives, which is absolutely ironic, because when you start dealing with Yahweh's holy law, one of the first things that you're going to hear from other people is, oh, they dealing with that bondage. They called the law bondage, not understanding that that was when we were given freedom. When we were given the law, he says, all right, here is how you're going to govern yourself. Now you're free. So there's a reason why this knowledge of who we are is starting to magnify in the earth, that people are starting to get some kind of drive in them about, hey, I want to know some of these things that for some reason are not spoken of. I want to hear about some of these things. That's that push. That lets you know that we're getting close to our freedom point, because Yahweh is making sure that we now start to understand his law again. And you need to understand law when you're going to be free. We're going to start tonight in Leviticus chapter 23. And we're going to read verses 15 through 21.
Verse 15. And you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Shabbat, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete.
Now, the thing that you have to really pay attention to, even in the little subheadings above this in Leviticus 23, if you look, it says the wave loaves, the church at Pentecost, 50 days after. Now, this is the Old Testament, but even in their printing of it, they made sure that they put in the Greek term, Pentecost, so that we still don't get the whole correlation of the Feast of Weeks and the Pentecost is the same thing here. So by giving it this new name, this is why a lot of people only, refer that back to a New Testament thing. But even if you read it here, you still see that they're throwing the Pentecost title around. Go ahead.
Even on to the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days.
Right. 7 Sabbaths is 49 days. The next day is the 50th day. Go ahead.
And you shall offer a new meat offering unto Yah. You shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven.
So then what what Yahweh makes sure that we're dealing with is he's the one that's giving us our sustenance. He's the one that's making sure that we are able to sustain ourselves, that we're able to eat. So when you deal with all of these holy days, they're based around the agricultural season. We've gotten so far from that because all we do is go to the store, we pick up what it is we want, we go on about our business. Now, because we have been detached from those things so far, it has lost some of its meaning. And when you consider the children of Israel coming out of Egypt and Yahweh keeping that food from them, you have to understand what point he was making. They were captives before. They wanted to eat. They just yelled at their master some more. Give us some more of this. Give us some more of that. But once they were out there on their own, Yahweh is trying to get them to trust in him, to understand that he can provide those things. And we're going to have to go through the same thing. See, we've gotten accustomed to getting a check every 2 weeks. So we feel good about the every 2 week check. Well, I know I'm going to get such and such because I'm going to get a check in 2 weeks. Well, I know I'm going to get this because I'm going to get a check in 2 weeks. Now, when those things stop being available to us, we're going to have to start trusting in Yahweh our Elohim A whole lot more. Go ahead.
They are the first fruits unto Yah. Verse 18. And you shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and 1 young bullock, and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto Yah, with their meat offering and their drink offerings, even an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto Yahweh.
So if you back up to the end of 17, um, let's say, you shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. Now we know leaven is a representation of sin because it causes the bread to rise. But here you find out they are the first fruits unto Yahweh. These 2 wave loaves represent the 2 houses of Israel, and Israel in the beginning stages is still accepted, even with the leaven, even with the sin. We are not in a state of perfection. Yahweh still accepts Israel, even though we know that leaven is a representation of sin. Go ahead.
Then you shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits for a wave offering before Yahweh. With the 2 lambs, they shall be holy to Yahweh for the priest. And you shall proclaim on the selfsame day that it may be an holy convocation unto you. You shall do no servile work therein.
Right. And we understand that we are in the daughter of Babylon, and we don't get to choose all of the things the way we would like to. Understand that when these things were given unto the children of Israel, we were in control of our own schedule. It was our land. All our governors were of ourselves. So when Yahweh's word says it's a holy convocation, nobody better not ask you to come to work. It's not so in this land here. So I tell people, hey, you have to take some of these things with a grain of salt. Sometimes it takes some time to work up to that point of being able to get these days off. Because for one thing, trying to explain to the heathen the days that you need off, but your days ain't the same every year. See, they days the same. You have to walk in both of these things. They know when Christmas is gonna be. They can find out at the beginning when they put their calendar out. They know when their Easter gonna be. So they can say in January what it is. They already know a certain set days. There's very few that they don't know already. But with us, we have to count those things out ahead of time, and then put in for those days. Now, what happened if, in some jobs, other people already got those days? And what they'll tell you in some places, if somebody else is already off on that day, you don't get to have that day. Now, how do you prepare yourself for that? See, what people have to understand, you have days that you can be off, and then you got sick days. What, did you use up all your sick days? Because when it come down to days that I got to be off, I feel a cough coming on. Whoa, yeah, I feel it, boss, I feel it. Right, one way or another, I'm going to get these days off. So that means I got to prepare for that then. That means I can't use up all my sick days. Because I know I'm going to be sick on the 14th. Go ahead, brother.
It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations.
All right, you finished that? All right, let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 10. And be careful of your wording. See this stuff right here? This is a family emergency. Yahweh my Elohim calleth me. It's a family emergency. So I got to be there, boss. 1 Samuel chapter 10, and let's read verses 1 through 11.
Then Samuel took a vial of oil and poured it upon his head and kissed him and said, Is it not because Yahweh has anointed you to be captain over his inheritance? When you are departed from me today, then you shall find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre in the border of Benjamin at Zilzah. And they will say unto you, The asses which you went to seek to seek are found, and lo, your father has left the care of the asses, and sorroweth for you, saying, What shall I do for my son?
All right, so this is when Saul is anointed king, and understand that these 2 houses are represented by Leah and Rachel, and then even within doing this, he's telling him, you shall find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre. Go ahead.
Then shall you go on forward from thence, and you shall come to the plain of Tabor, and there shall meet you 3 men going up to Elohim to Bethel, one carrying 3 kids, and another carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a bottle of wine. And they will salute you, and give you 2 loaves of bread, which you shall receive of their hands.
Right. You have the representation of these 2 houses of Israel, which has not been divided at this point. But they're going to give these 2 loaves of bread into his hand. Go ahead.
After that you shall come to the hill of Elohim, where is the garrison of the Philistines. And it shall come to pass, when you are come thither to the city, that you shall meet a company of prophets coming down from the high place with a psaltery, and a tabret, and a pipe, and a harp before them, and they shall prophesy. And the Spirit of Yahweh will come upon you, and you shall prophesy with them, and shall be turned into another man. Let it be, when these signs are come unto you, that you do as occasion serve you, for Elohim is with you. And you shall go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto you to offer burnt offerings, and to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days shall you tarry till I come to you and show you what you shall do.
Right. So you have a situation where, yes, this Spirit is given, but the Spirit doesn't always stay there just because it's given. You have to decide that you're going to deal with things the way that they're supposed to be dealt with. Go ahead.
And it was so that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, Elohim gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day. And when they came thither to the hill, behold, a company of prophets met him, and the Spirit of Elohim came upon him, and he prophesied among them. And it came to pass, when all that knew him before time saw that, behold, he prophesied among the prophets, then the people said one to another, What is this that is come upon the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets?
All right, jump to verse 17.
And Samuel called the people together unto Yahweh to Mizpah, and said unto the children of Israel, Thus said Yahweh Elohim of Israel, I have brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all kingdoms, and of them that oppressed you. And you have this day rejected your Elohim.
All right, this is already a bad way this is even going. This is the king that they asked for, but Yahweh gave it to him out of anger. Go ahead.
Who himself saved you out of all your adversities and your tribulations, and you have said unto him, No, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before Yahweh by your tribes and by your thousands. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. When he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was taken, and Saul the son of Kish was taken. And when they sought him, he could not be found. Therefore they inquired of Yahweh further, if the man should yet come thither. And Yahweh answered, Behold, he has hid himself among the stuff. And they ran and fetched him thence. And when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders and upward. And Samuel said to all the people, See you him whom Yahweh hath chosen, that there's none like him among all the people.
Physically, there's none like him among all the people. Go ahead.
And all the people shouted and said, Elohim save the king.
All the people shouted, Elohim save the king, because he looked like a warrior type fellow. And he was of the Benjamites, and they were the warrior tribe. But when it came down to governing, it was something altogether different. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 35. But we see that those 2 loaves was placed in his hand. He was given the rulership over Israel. Ezekiel chapter 35, and we're going to read verses 1 through 15.
Moreover, the word of Yahweh came on to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it.
Right. The very same thing that we were reading earlier about Idumea, Edom. Understand, this is the same Mount Seir. Yahweh is dealing with these people, and even understanding what it was we read earlier today. Now they're passing laws to where if you just read some of these things out loud, you can be charged with a hate crime. Check that out. But yet they're trying to talk about allowing the Bible to go in schools. Now, you know, that's going to be a very interesting thing, because you're going to put the Bible in school, but then obviously they're going to have somebody to dictate. Now, don't read that. Can't read that. Go ahead.
And say unto it, Thus says the Adonai Yah, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against you, and I'll stretch out mine hand against you, and I will make you most desolate. I will lay your cities waste, and you shall be desolate, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. Because you have had a perpetual hatred, and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their lawlessness had an end.
Right. So whenever they seen that opportunity, they pushed forth to take the things that belong to the children of Israel. Understanding that we were going to be separated for so long, they knew that they had free reign to go in and say, no, we those people. Because they're going to be gone for a long time. You go on a long enough journey, people start looking at your house. They start sizing up the rooms. They start picking which room gonna be theirs. Well, that's what the nations did to us. Being around us, a lot of people, of course, we taught other people our culture because we had to. But once they understood enough about the culture, they knew, oh, they gonna keep messing with Yahweh, and Yahweh gonna send them out of here, and we're gonna get all that stuff. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Therefore, as I live, says the Adonai Yah, I will prepare you unto blood, and blood shall pursue you. Seeth you has not hated blood, even blood shall pursue you.
Right. So it is set that they're going to have to war constantly. That's why when people start talking about we're going to go to Israel, right, it is constant fighting there. He said, you have not hated blood. So wherever you go, you're going to have to fight. Go ahead.
Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it him that passeth out, and him that returns. And I'll fill his mountains with his slain men. In your hills and in your valleys, and in all your rivers shall they fall that are slain with the sword. I'll make you perpetual desolations, and your cities shall not return, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. Because you have said, these 2 nations and these 2 countries shall be mine.
Right. I'm going to take the 2 wave loaves. They're going to be mine. I see an opportunity to take the 2 wave loaves. They mine. Go ahead.
And we will possess it, whereas Yahweh was there. Therefore, as I live, says the Adonai Yah, I will even do according to your anger and according to your envy, which you have used out of your hatred against them. And I'll make myself known among them when I have judged you. And you shall know that I am Yahweh, and that I have heard all your blasphemies which you have spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they're laid desolate, they're given us to consume. Thus with your mouth you have boasted against me, and have multiplied your words against me. I have heard them.
Right. Because they've had these things in possession for so long, they don't believe that they're going to ever be taken back. Go ahead.
Thus says the Adonai Yah, when the whole earth rejoices, I will make you desolate. As you did rejoice at the inheritance of the house of Israel, because it was desolate, so will I do unto you. You shall be desolate, O Mount Seir, and all Idumea, even all of it, and they shall know that I am Yahweh.
Right. And people can go through all of these things to fool the rest of the world, but it is not going to fool Yahweh, our Elohim. What is happening is our punishment has a designated time. And when that time is up, Yahweh is going to take care of all of his business. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 37 and start that at verse 15.
The word of Yahweh came again unto me, saying, moreover, you son of man, take you one stick and write upon it for Yehuda and for the children of Israel his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Yosef, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions. And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in your hand.
Right. These this separated house, which has been separated for a very, very long time, Yahweh is going to heal that separation. Go ahead.
And when the children of your people shall speak unto you, saying, will you not show us what you mean by these? Say unto them, thus says the Adonai Yah, behold, I will make the stick of Yosef, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Yehuda, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand. And the sticks whereon you writeth shall be in your hand before their eyes. And say unto them, thus says the Adonai Yah, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whether they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land.
Yahweh is going to orchestrate these things and make that push so that those nations want to get us up out of their land. But it has to start with the daughter of Babylon first. But it's going to go to all those other places. We have people spread around everywhere. All those people got to make it home too. Not just you. Go ahead.
And I'll make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king of them all. And they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all.
Right. If you watch that Limba tribe video, as they start talking to the Jewish, they claim to be the tribe of Yehuda, being which is why they say everybody is, all of them are Jews. They say there's no need to look for any lost tribes of Israel. They said, no, don't look for any lost tribes. Right? Because if you keep looking, you're going to find something. And then when you find something, you're going to realize they don't look like us. Then we're going to have a problem. So stop looking. Now, what person who believed that that was their family, what family-oriented person would say, look, don't look for my brother because you might find him? Who would say that? What kind of family-oriented person would say that? And they recorded this. This is openly on the documentary. Don't look for the lost tribe. Why would you say that? Because they know what you're going to find when you start looking. Go ahead.
Verse 23, neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I'll save them out of all their dwelling places
Mm-hmm.
when they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their Elohim.
Each time we read this, I think it kind of just escapes people. They will be my people. I will be their Elohim once they're cleansed. When we go through the things of the foot washing, you have to remember what Yahshua ended up saying to his disciples. Do you understand what I just did to you? And they didn't. Do you understand what I've done to you? He said, this you ought to do to one another. That cleansing is very important. He said, then will I be your Elohim, and you shall be my people. This is why the people go out with the fake tribal chart, and they go and do all of those things, and they say, we're all Israel. Not one of them have been cleansed, but they still calling themselves Israel. Have no desire to be cleansed. That's a problem. Go ahead.
And David my servant shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments, and observe my statutes, and do them.
Mm-hmm.
And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell therein, even they, and their children, and their children's children, forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever.
Right. He should be under Yahshua. Go ahead.
Moreover, I'll make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I'll place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them, yea, I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, Yahweh, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore.
So Yahweh is going to be the one that is going to vindicate the children of Israel and prove to the entire world who you are to him. Let's go to Exodus chapter 23. Exodus 23, and let's start that at verse 10.
In 6 years you shall sow your land, and shall gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie still, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beast of the field shall eat. In like manner you shall deal with your vineyard and with your olive yard.
And if we just look around today, when I was growing up, you had fruit trees and all of those things everywhere. You could just walk home from school and pick all manner of fruit. You don't even see any fruit trees anymore. It is some really strange things. It's like we think the fruit grow at Walmart. Because you don't get to see any trees or vines that those things are actually on. Go ahead.
6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your ass may rest, and the son of your handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of your mouth.
And we have to consider that all of their names, the names of their days are after their pagan gods. The names of their months are after their pagan gods. When we say January, understand what January is. It's the month of Janus, the two-headed god that looks into the past and the future. That's why you celebrate watch night at midnight on New Year's Eve. How you even operate here without saying their gods? You can't. Not if you're going to do any kind of business. Because you're going to have to put down their pagan names one way or another. But this was given unto us in our land. We didn't have to use none of their names in our land. See, this is a part of our curse, that we even have to deal with those pagan names to this day. But when we get in charge of our land, we're going to throw all this paganism out. it is commanded that we throw all of it out. Go ahead.
3 times you shall keep a feast unto me in the year.
Mm-hmm.
You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it you came out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty.
Mm-hmm.
And the feast of harvest,
Which is the Feast of Weeks. Go ahead.
the first fruits of your labors.
This is the first fruits of your labor, the first part of what then is growing. You deal with in the beginning of the year, the first part of the sign of growth. Then your first fruit that comes up from that. Now Yahweh has orchestrated another feast. Go ahead.
Which you have sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year.
So then that is tabernacles after you're getting in the harvest from all of the things that you have planted. Go ahead.
When you have gathered in your labors out of the field. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before the Adonai. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread.
You shall not, now, consider this. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. We go back to Leviticus 23, and it automatically accepts those 2 wave loaves with the leaven. Go ahead.
Neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of Yahweh your Elohim. You shall not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way and to bring you into the place which I have prepared.
And these are the things that we have to consider, because at some point we're going to have to prepare ourselves for war. And you can't prepare for war any old kind of way. You have to be sanctified for the master's use. And for us to be sanctified for the master's use, that angel is going to lead us. We read in Joshua, once we bring in a cursed thing there, the angel steps away. Now you on your own. And if you're going to go against these nations with the weaponry that they got, if you on your own, we're going to be dead in 15 minutes. They got stuff that shoot around corners. We peeking around the corner and that bullet goes shoot. You peeking, they already got you. But that don't mean nothing to the angel of Yahweh. The best weaponry they have means nothing to him. That's who we got to keep on our side. We got to keep the angel of Yahweh on our side. If we got him, we can't lose. If we don't have him, we can't win. Go ahead.
Beware of him and obey his voice.
Uh-huh.
Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him.
So when the angel get ready to kill you, he gonna say, thus said Yahweh. So that's why people gonna say, man, Yahweh killed him. No, that angel who spoke in Yahweh's name who killed him. But he already has the authority. Go ahead.
But if you shall indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto your enemies and an adversary unto your adversaries.
Do obey and do what he say and obey my voice. Understand that. He talking for me. Go ahead.
For mine angel shall go before you and bring you in unto the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off.
All nations that were stronger than you. All nations that were stronger than you. Every last one of those nations had more power than you. This is something that Yahweh has already done before. But see, it has happened so long ago, we don't really understand or believe that it can happen again. Because now we're saying, well, look at the technology they have. That's earth technology. It means something here. It seems like it's like cutting edge. That's old stuff to angel of Yahweh. That means nothing. So he did it before. These nations were stronger than us. Think about why our people were afraid the first time. They say, hey, man, them people giants, bruh. Man, we go over there, man, we like ants, man. Man, we gonna die. Had already messed up the minds of most of the people right there. Putting that fear in their heart because they said, we're not going to be able to win this. And if you're relying on flesh, we're not going to be able to win it. Go ahead.
Verse 24, you shall not bow down to their gods nor serve them, nor do after their works, but you shall utterly overthrow them and quite break down their images.
Mm-hmm. And we got a lot of breaking down to do in the land of Israel. It's a whole lot of paganism going on in there. Go ahead.
And you shall serve Yahweh your Elohim, and he shall bless your bread and your water, and I'll take sickness away from the midst of you.
Mm-hmm.
There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in your land. The number of your days I will fulfill. I will send my fear before you, and will destroy all the people to whom you shall come, and I'll make all your enemies turn their backs onto you.
If you read a lot of the encounters that we had with other nations, Yahweh had given us a way to see whether or not we were supposed to fight those nations. And you come up unto a nation that is not one of these main ones that I'm telling you, you're going to have to fight anyway. Proclaim peace unto them. See what they do. If they don't offer any peace, kill everything in there. But you proclaim peace first and see what they do. And half of the time, this is how King David ended up getting his power. They go through, they say, hey man, just let us pass through. We just want to pass through the land. They said, no, you ain't passing through this land. You ain't coming through. We gonna go to war. All right. They end up with all their stuff after we end up killing all of them. But that was not our objective. Some things are being coming against you for a judgment against them. You don't even make the decision. It makes the decision that it's going to come at you. That's how Yahweh delivered it into your hand. Go ahead.
And I'll send hornets before you, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field multiply against you.
Mm-hmm.
By little and little I will drive them out from before you, until you be increased and inherit the land.
Right. By little and little. As you increase, I'm going to keep pushing them further and further back until you possess all of it. But that comes in stages. Go ahead.
And I'll set your bounds from the Red Sea even onto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert onto the river. For I'll deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their gods.
You shall make no agreement with them, nor with their gods. And if you make marriages among them, you have made covenants. And Yahweh had already said what's going to happen. When you marry amongst them, you're going to start worshiping their God. Guaranteed. It is amazing how many places I go into and people got statues of all kind of different gods in their house. Hanging out with all kind of other people. We just think it's cool. Not knowing that, you know those are gods that they're worshiping, right? Go ahead.
They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto you.
Right, and we can't figure out why we're having so many issues to this day, because we have served the gods of the nations, and it has become a snare unto us, and we are suffering for it to this day. Acts chapter 2. And let's read verses 1 through 13.
Acts chapter 2 and verse 1. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting.
All right. So understand they were there the day of Feast of Weeks, or as it is now called, Pentecost. They were there to make their appearance 3 times in a year. All males make their appearance before Yahweh. They were there on one accord because they were there for the exact same reason. Go ahead.
And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of a fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and began to speak with other languages, as the Spirit gave them utterance.
So the whole point that we have to understand out of this is the Spirit comes and does what things are necessary. They have come from all these places to come and make their appearance unto Yahweh, but they all speak different languages. The Spirit then shows up and gives what is necessary. See, there are things that we may want, but that ain't necessary. That's just something you want. The Spirit shows up and gives what is necessary for this thing to go the way it needs to go. Not that the Spirit show up and just give you something because it's something you want. See, you just getting up feeling good and taking off running across the room. How does that benefit anybody other than you? The ability to speak in other languages benefits everybody in the room. You just feeling good because you want to dance up here? Who benefited? Go ahead.
And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Yehudis, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together, and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own language, wherein we were born? Parthians, and Medes, and Elamites, and the dwellers in Mesopotamia, and in Judea, and Cappadocia, in Pontus, and in Asia, Phrygia, and Pamphylia, in Egypt, and in parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Yehudis and proselytes.
Proselytes. See, proselytes are converts. But today, now, the proselytes have taken over as if they are the ones who stood at that mount and accepted all of those commandments. Now that is an issue. That's when the branches boast against the tree. And Yahweh is going to have to take care of that. Go ahead.
Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our language the wonderful works of Elohim. And they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying one to another, What meaneth this? Others mocking said, These men are full of new wine.
Right. So just this ability that is given out on this day of the Feast of Weeks or Pentecost, they had to come there first. See, a lot of things we're trying to work it out and figure it out before we make any effort to do anything. They're coming from all these places. They get there. There is an issue because they cannot communicate with one another. Then comes the Spirit and takes care of the necessity. But if you sitting at your house saying what you ain't gonna be able to do, so now you don't do anything, it is not a necessity for the Spirit to show up in your living room. So you never get any gift, you never make any move, nothing ever happens. Because you already defeated before you took off. So you just sat there. So now, do you even believe that the Spirit exists? Because you didn't get to a point where it was a necessity, so the Spirit had no reason to show up and help you. You stayed in your house. You said, man, I'm not going to be able to speak that language. I'm not going to be able to understand those people. So ain't no need of me going. So the Spirit went somewhere else and helped somebody else. But they had to get there. All confused, all from different areas. Then the Spirit takes care of that necessity. But you still got to take care of the things leading up to that. You still got to get there. Then the Spirit shows up. Go to Deuteronomy 16. Start at verse 1.
Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 1. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto Yahweh your Elohim. For in the month of Abib, Yahweh your Elohim brought you forth out of Egypt by night.
So this is the beginning of our year. This is where they get the whole thing of the April Fools. Go ahead.
You shall therefore sacrifice the Passover unto Yahweh your Elohim, of the flock and the herd, in the place which Yahweh shall choose to place his name there.
All right, jump to verse 9.
7 weeks shall you number unto you. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as you begin to put the sickle to the corn. And you shall keep the feast of weeks unto Yahweh your Elohim, with a tribute of a freewill offering of your hand, which you shall give unto Yahweh your Elohim, according as Yahweh your Elohim has blessed you.
According as Yahweh your Elohim has blessed you. So there's not a set amount that anyone can tell you to give. It says all males must make their appearance before Yahweh 3 times in the year, and no one can come empty. But no one can tell you how much a man is supposed to offer for his family. Go ahead.
And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, you and your son and your daughter, and your manservant and your maidservant, and the Levite that is within your gates, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow that are among you, in the place which Yahweh your Elohim has chosen to place his name there. And you shall remember that you was a bondman in Egypt, and you shall observe and do these statutes.
If you remember that you were a servant, then it's a certain amount of compassion that should be among any other people who are servants. Jump down to verse 16.
3 times in a year shall all your males appear before Yahweh your Elohim in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks.
Right. And because when you read this in other places, it'll say Feast of Harvest, or of course they'll put in Pentecost. So then you don't see where these things are the same things. So you got Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Weeks. Go ahead.
And in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before Yahweh empty. Every man shall give as he's able, according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you.
All right. And that is what we are gathered here tonight to take a part in. And when we consider these things, when you go into Zechariah 14 and start reading about Feast of Tabernacles, Yahweh puts forth a mandate that all the nations have to come up and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And we understand what happens on these days. On these days where all males must make an appearance, no one can come empty. So they're bringing their offering. Well, the very things that we are participating in are the very things that's going to sustain us as a nation. All of those nations are going to have to come up and bring their offering. You have to consider, what do you think an offering of a whole nation look like? See, when you don't consider that, You have to go and look at, if you ever run into some of those programs where they're talking about the Saudi rich kids, you should look at it. They had like 42 kids. And number 42 got 4 Ferraris. He like, what number 1 got? And they ain't had a job to the first. Their kids invite people like Usher to come and sing at their parties. Their kids do that. That's a kid's party. Like, your kid had enough to pay Usher? Usher got like these diamond shoes, and they said, like, where you get these shoes from? Oh, a Saudi kid gave them to me. You playing, right? Their inheritance is just that large because of the oil that they have there. And their inheritance ain't got nothing on yours. Your Elohim own the whole earth. And all those nations are going to have to come up, make their appearance, and bring their offering. That's all that we're going to do for tonight. It is now 10:30. For all of the people who are in other places, we will be making our appearance in 10 minutes. So it is 10:30 now. We will be making our appearance at 10:40. So we will go outside. We will face the east. We will offer up prayers and supplications for us and our families. I pray that, you guys did hear on this morning's sermon, so that there is some understanding about what it is we are to pray about as we make our appearances. That's all we're going to do for tonight. Enjoy your feast. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.